Shabbat Shalom, everybody. As you know, Pesach is coming soon, and in the spirit of Pesach, I wanted to share something beautiful with you that I got from a Haggadah that I recently discovered called the Carlebach Haggadah. Maybe you're familiar with the music and stories of Shlomo Carlebach, a rabbi who was called the singing rabbi or sometimes the dancing rabbi, because he would tour the world for actually decades on end, going from place to place, telling stories, singing songs, and teaching beautiful pieces of Torah. So recently, his students gathered up many of his teachings that he'd given over the years and applied them to different portions of the Haggadah. And I wanted to share one beautiful story that Reb Shlomo tells about Motzi Matzah, the step in the Seder where we are going to eat matzah. And so this is the story he tells. He says, "My father was appointed to the rabbinate of Berlin a little before Purim, at the end of the First World War. A few days after Purim, he received a letter from a soldier serving at the front. Most of the soldiers sent to the front never returned. The letter said, 'My name is Moshe Cohen. I'm the only matzah baker in my whole hometown. If I don't come home immediately, there won't be any matzahs for Pesach. So please go to General so-and-so and beg him to give me some leave so I can come home in time to bake some matzah.' You only had to show this letter to anyone. If he had any kind of brains in his head, he'd tell you not to waste your time. To try and get a leave for this soldier was a big joke. It was the desperate end of the war. Every day, thousands of soldiers were dying, and there was nothing to eat in Berlin. And you think the general staff had nothing on their minds besides matzahs? My father, yes, he was an important rabbi with a big shul. But to come to the general in the middle of a war and tell him that we need matzahs, for us it's life and death. But what would it be to him? Crazy. But my father had a pure soul. He said, 'I didn't ask for this letter. The letter came to me, and so I must go.' Dearest friends, in my life, I never saw my father without a book in his hands. This time, too, he took with him a few Sfarim, because who knew how much time he'd have to wait in order to speak to the general? When he got there, he saw hundreds of people waiting. The general had several officers who did nothing but take down names and give out numbers. My father understood that it would probably be many days before he got to speak to the general. What did he do? He gave in his name and continued learning. A few minutes later, an officer came over to my father and said, 'Rabbi, the general asks you to come to him immediately. He must see you.' He walked into the general's office, and the general took my father's hand and kissed it. Unbelievable. 'What's going on?' He asked, 'Aren't you the son of Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, the rabbi of Lübeck?' My father said, 'Yes, I'm his youngest son.' He said to my father, 'Whatever you want will be done.' My father said right away, 'I need to bring a soldier from the French front back to his hometown.' The general said, 'Just give me his ID number.' And right away he dispatched an order to the staff in France to send Moshe Cohen home. My father asked the general, 'How do you know my father?' But if I want you to understand how that happened, I have to take a minute and tell you another story first. In the early 1900s, thousands and thousands of Jewish youths from Germany left for America. To our sorrow, their parents lost all connection with them. This left thousands of parents without any help or support when they grew old. There were old people simply dying in their houses without anyone even realizing. My grandfather, the rabbi of Lübeck, thought, 'I must build an old age home for these people.' He decided he would look for new contributors, people that never gave to holy causes like this before. And he heard that the banker of the German Kaiser was actually a Jew. Why was he a Jew? Simply because the Kaiser never asked him to convert. All the Kaiser worried about was that he should take care of his money. But if the Kaiser had asked him to convert, he would have. That's what they told my grandfather about him. This man had certainly never associated himself with anything Jewish. But what do we know about a Jewish soul? What do we know about the depths of a Jewish soul? My grandfather went to Baron von Bleichroder's palace, and they brought him to his office. All of a sudden, the Baron stood up when he saw my grandfather. He went over to him, kissed his hand, and started crying. He said, "Rabbi, you must know that God sent you to me. I'm 70 years old, and today is my birthday. And last night, I cried the whole night. I thought, I'm Jewish, but I've never spoken to my brethren. I never spoke to someone who could purify my soul. Today, you came to me." They became close friends. Anything that my grandfather asked of him, the Baron did immediately. He built a huge building for an old age home, and it was the first old age home in Germany, probably the first in the whole of Europe. After 5 years, during which my grandfather spoke with the Baron almost every day, he got a call from the Baron's son, who said, "Rabbi, you were my father's best friend. My father wasn't a simple man. This morning I entered his office and saw a letter on his desk. This is what was written. If, God forbid, I don't get up tomorrow morning, I want only Rabbi Carlbach to eulogize me. If he cannot, I don't want any eulogy." I ran into my father's bedroom, but he was already in heaven. My grandfather said a eulogy for the Baron, and understandably, the Kaiser of Germany with all his family came to the funeral. The brother of the Tsar of Russia came too, and the kings of England, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, all the European leaders. So now I can return to the original story with the general. When my father asked him how he knew the Rabbi of Lübeck, he answered, "I was fortunate enough to be there when Rabbi Carlbach eulogized Baron von Bleichrodel. Let me tell you, generals don't cry and they don't laugh. My heart is dead, and my soul died even before I was born, because you can't be a general and remain a person. I don't believe in anything. If you came and told me that half the world just died, I wouldn't blink an eye. But one time in my life, I cried like a baby for a quarter of an hour. Once in my life, I believed in people and in a living God. Once in my life, I prayed that God would forgive my sins, and that was when your father spoke." So, it's one of many priceless stories that is contained in this Haggadah, a Haggadah like no other. And so if you want to add a little spice and variety to your Passover Seder this year or in future years, I recommend the Carlbach Haggadah. I believe it's still available online, or perhaps at Israel's in Toronto. And I want to take this opportunity to wish you a deep and happy and beautiful and blissful Passover Seder. In fact, I wish you 2 of them. And once again, as is my custom in all these videos, I want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.